Pro tip for you today that will improve your woodworking, make you more accurate and faster with very little effort. Stop depending on your tape measure so much. I have a project here that I need to mount 4 blocks in exact location from 4 corners. I need these blocks to all be the exact size. I went over to the table saw, made a rip, set it on my miter saw, and cut 4 blocks. So far, no tape measure. Next, I needed all 4 blocks to have 2 holes drilled and countersunk in the exact same location. I did use my tape measure to make 2 marks on a single block and then put it away. Then I stacked all 4 blocks, took my taper bit with the countersink, drilled through the top block and countersunk, went through and marked the location on the next block down. Then I drilled through that block, and again, it marked the next one down until all 4 were done. So now I have 4 blocks exactly the same, drilled exactly the same, and I've only used the tape measure 1 time. Next, I needed to mount the blocks in the Smart Cart, and I wanted them in the exact same location in each corner, and that was to center the block in the center of the hole. I took my tape measure and I made a mark on the top edge here that lined up with the center of the hole. Then I took my tape measure again and found the center of the block. Rather than mounting the block with 2 screws, I picked up the tape measure again, measured that distance from the inside to the edge of the block, grabbed a piece of 18 mil, cut it to that length on the miter saw. Without the tape measure, I just used the stop block. Then I was able to put this in the corner, put this up right up to it. This not only gave me a little bit of squaring, I'm square across the bottom, I'm straight up and down, and I'm exactly where I want to be centered in that hole. Mount the block with 2 screws. Repeat that process all the way around using a block. The next step in the process is to mount the smart casters, and I wanted them centered in the holes. Measured the width of the mounting bracket on the smart caster, divided that in half, which gave me the center mark offset to one side. Using the tape measure again, I made that mark on the block, get that dimension. Another piece of scrap on the miter saw, I'm able to put the caster right up next to it, which gives me the exact offset that I need, centering it in the hole. The wheel needs to touch the floor, so that pushes down in that dimension. And because this is a nice square cut, I'm able to hold the bracket to the wheel nice and square. Now I don't need to think about it, I just put in the 4 screws. With this same block, now I'll go around and mount the other 3 casters, not having to pull out my tape measure. This is an actual project that I'm doing right now that I showed you this workflow, this concept. This is a project you may never do. This is the first time I'm doing it, yet using these blocks was an instant tool that I was able to pull out because I use it in so many places. So think about your workflow, your production when you're doing things. Even if you only have to do something twice, if you take a second to make a block, it's going to be more accurate. It's going to be faster than if you pull out the tape measure, make a mark, go to that mark, then go and make that same mark somewhere else. Try to minimize the use of your tape and go to blocks and story poles and things that are laid out once. Take your time and lay it out precisely, and then use it to repeat your work. And as a side note, there was also a workflow here that I hope you noticed. I started by making the blocks to the width. So it was one operation, and I was able to get a nice rip. And then when I cut them to length, it was 1, 2, 3, 4. Then when I drilled the holes, I just stacked them, and it was 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, until they were all 4 made. It was very quick. And then laying out where the block goes, I slowed down a bit, used a tape measure, got everything figured out, measured for that block, and then again put the tape down, used my miter gauge to get exactly the cut that I needed. And then again with the wheels, pick the tape back up. So there's a flow there. But also the tools that I'm using are part of the systematic approach that I use, that you should use, whether it's my system or another system, but being systematic and organized in how you do it. With my workbench, I have my tools here set up and ready to use. Additionally, I had my sander out. I had my router with the bit in it to bevel the edges. So think about not only these individual things, but the whole systematic approach to whatever you build. It will increase the accuracy of your work, the quality of your work, and the speed of your output. If you're doing this for a living, it allows you to make more money for your time, but charge your customers less, offering them more value. If you want to get a detailed set of plans to build a smart workbench, a smart station, a smart cart, or any of the accessories that make up this system, there's a link in the description of the video down below. Mahalo.